Hello War of the Visions fans, I'm Jackie Fox, and I've done the math so you don't have to, looking at JP side numbers for Ashen Mont to try to pick out the best possible teams to run him with, even in a meta that includes Sephiroth. So there's a lot of advice out there that I think is okay, but doesn't really bear out in the numbers, and I was really interested to see the numbers for all of the Advent Children units and do examinations of each of them like this, so I figured why not do Ashen Mont and see how he's doing a month after release. And to do that, I actually looked at 5 different days worth of data for him, looking at the top teams and honestly looking at the best teams. Like, I scrolled through here to try to find teams that had the best numbers, and then I compared them on 5 days and figured out kind of what a top 10 would be. Now naturally I didn't rank every team, I really went about 5 pages and found the most impressive ones from that spread for a couple of days. I took a couple teams out of the equation because they just weren't performing well on other days, they weren't performing consistently, and I added some teams in that I thought were potentially doing a lot better than I thought at first. And my conclusion is this. So a lot of numbers on screen here, and this top line for each team, this is going to be their offensive scores. So as you can see, this first team here actually on a number of days scores above 6 stars on offense. You can also see their top team frequently scores around 2 defends per day. It is our number 1 offense team, but only our 4th place defensive team, and I think this is in part because the evasion centered teams just don't do as well as on defense because they can get, they can be targeted by high accuracy teams, and that can be a problem. But they can target low accuracy on offense, and that makes them really, really effective. And for this, I think Halloween Lucio is probably the number 1 unit. Doing slightly better on defense though, 2P in the same team is doing pretty well. And then our 3rd place team is going to be Halloween Lucio, 2P, and Ashen Mont. And this is going to be the first team, and you'll notice that 4 of these are bold. That's because they don't contain Bradley. 6 out of 10 of the top 10 teams are just Ashen Mont and Bradley and somebody else. So if you're building this team, that's a pretty good foundation. Going evasion is definitely going to help you on offense, and that's definitely helped the teams in the numbers the most. Our number 1 offense team is the Halloween Lucio evasion team. Our number 2 offense team is actually one of the most poorly rated teams on here, in part because nobody's using it on defense. I could only find 1 day worth of defensive data for it at all. But it has some of the better numbers for offense on average, working out to about 5.3 stars. So that's actually pretty decent, even though it didn't even try to compete on defense, which is really why it's here in 10th. They could have done a lot better if people had used it, and it could have worked into my numbers better. Melnia, Ashen Mont, and Bradley is a pretty good team. This sees a lot of usage on the JP side, but it didn't actually excel on offense or defense, but it did good enough numbers in both that it was in 4th. Then our number 2 defensive team, Strategist Oldoa, most likely in 1st position so that she baits win teams. Oh, no, wait. No, this isn't a bait team at all. Okay, I'm not entirely sure why this does so well in defense, but good job. I initially thought it was a bait team, but it's actually like the inverse of a bait team. Maybe you run Ashen Mont or Bradley up front and hope that Oldoa can deal with the win team. I'm not sure that's the best strategy because she's not the best against Pierce. But hey, it's number 2 in defense for a reason, so it's clearly doing something right. Another team that I saw pretty consistently, and a reason I'm going to have to start building Rinoa over Garnet, because I didn't find Garnet in the data at all. Even though I like her better as a unit, I really think that it's because, for the same reasons that this chart is absolutely dominated by evasion units, I think that Rinoa giving haste on one of her buffs is probably really impactful for the invasiveness of these units, and they generally probably like that. So this is what's causing this team to excel more in offense. Although it doesn't do quite as well on defense, it's still relatively solid. 6.8 defends on average isn't terrible, but it's not the best, for sure. And then, just to make a point, all the way here in 8th place is the supergroup team of One Wing Sephiroth, Ashen Mont, and Joom. And yes, it does fairly impressive numbers. It averages 4.5 stars per day over the 5 days I tested it, and averages about 1.8 defends. Both of those are good stats, but technically speaking, there are a lot of other viable teams in the meta that edge this thing out, at least in terms of containing Ashen Mont, and I'm sure that the same is true maybe for Joom and for Sephiroth as well. This just happens to be by far the most popular team containing basically any of these characters, because it is kind of the supergroup team of them all. But possibly an even better team, and the one that is number 1 on defense. Again, not necessarily for elemental reasons, I'm not seeing this as a bait team, it just seems to do really well on defense. One Wing Sephiroth, Ashen Mont, and Bradley. And this was the only team. There was a team. There were actually 2 teams that came very close. Oh, wait. Sorry, this Melnia team is tied for 3rd on defense. That's why it was up there. It did have really good defensive numbers. Okay, that makes much more sense. This is actually the team that is so average that it didn't get scored on either side. But One Wing Sephiroth, Ashen Mont, and Bradley was the only team that was tested here that averaged at 2 defends per fight. This is in part because I didn't see it on one of the days. Oddly enough, a day long after Sephiroth had been released, I thought it would be harder to find him on days closer to his release, but actually, no, this team actually disappeared on defense on one of the days further from his release. Yeah, that's coming a lot closer to, I think, 5th place on offense, which was 4.94 stars, just barely 6th place behind the Rinoa variant, but number 1 on defense, so this is definitely a very strong team to be considering with Ashen Mont or with One Wing Sephiroth, as it is doing pretty well. And then finally, 2nd place in offense, again, the number 10 team, Melnia, Ashen Mont, and Dialdo. And this just straight up isn't a team that I can find people playing on defense anymore. There was a time, I guess, that people played this on defense, and that time ended around May 8th. Because I could not find this team in defensive data after about May 5th. So, whoop. This team seems to have a lot of potential, but at the same time, maybe there is a reason why people aren't playing it on defense. And the one day that it did get played on defense, it is tied for the lowest defensive score of any day for any of these other teams. The only other team that did a 1.4 was the Rinoa, Ashen Mont, and Bradley team. So, hopefully, in about 10 minutes, I have explained to you both what the top 10 Ashen Mont teams are, why they are the best, what they specifically are the best at, and maybe how you should be using them, but also have helped to explain to you why, despite it being good, and despite it being versatile, and despite it probably showing up in any video that I do like this for any one of these 3 units, Joom, the Spring Celestial, Ashen Mont, and One Wing Sephiroth is not the best combination of any of these units, and honestly, you could do better. That being said, if you are just coming into the game and you are pulling new units and trying to get yourself built up that way, this team is plenty serviceable and probably easier to build on a vision card basis than some of these other teams, which are going to rely on a lot of either Chaos VCs or at the very least a bunch of Earth VCs, a good Earth VC collection. So, if that answered a lot of your questions about building Ashen Mont, be sure to like and subscribe because there's more content like this. And also, if you think this is different, if this is something that you wish you saw more of, be sure to let me know in the comments. Like, that encouragement really goes a long way in ensuring that I make more content like this. So if you enjoyed this, let me know, and I'd be happy to do it again sometime. I'm thinking I should probably do it for June anyways. In addition to liking and subscribing, which is always free, you can also check out that link in the description, like and subscribe in some other places that I post content across the internet, or you could support the channel by donating on either Ko-fi or Patreon. Both of them actually allow recurring donations at this point. If you just want to pitch in like $1 a month, that would be great. I would be happy to have some people join the $1 a month club, because with enough of you, hey, that's a cup of coffee, dinner, night out, something like that. Thank you so much for that. Or you could purchase one of my books. I have several all through different types of fiction, generally in the science fiction-y type of realm. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, be sure to check one of those out. That would be another way to help me have a night out with the family on the back of my War of the Visions content. That'd be nice. But if you have nothing else to give, again, like, subscribe, comment, definitely. Tell me what you thought of the video. Tell me which team you're planning to use. Tell me which team you're using now and how you think that might change into the future, or which of the Advent Children characters you are specifically saving for, maybe even at this moment pulling for. And with all that being said, I'll see you in the next one.